Intel and Micron both had some interesting updates as both stocks are up nearly 4% on the day. The great thing for the semiconductor industry is there's never a boring moment here, and we do have some updates for both these companies. So let's take a closer look in today's episode.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
All right, so first let's start off with Intel Corporation. So the stock was up about 3.6% for the day, and then after hours, the stock is up another 2.3%. Now, for those that have not been following the Intel story, it unfortunately has been filled with some drama with Intel and the current administration. So on August 7th of 2025, Donald J. Trump tweeted the following: "The CEO of Intel is highly conflicted and must resign immediately. There is no other solution to this problem. Thank you for your attention to this problem." Now, for those that are not familiar, the reason for this is Intel's current CEO, Lip-Bu Tan, has unfortunately had some negative press follow him. He was previously the CEO of Cadence, and Cadence just recently pleaded guilty where some employees sent some technology to China and a company that was kind of creating military simulations. There's also reports that Lip-Bu Tan has investments in China as well. So the current administration does not like that, especially for a company that, one, is getting a lot of money from the United States government to build manufacturing here in the United States. And I do believe the second reason is Intel, unfortunately, is slowing down some investments due to finances not making sense. So the current administration at the moment seemed to have had a hit target on Intel. Now, luckily for Intel investors, the CEO, Lip-Bu Tan, met with Trump today. And this is the tweet we actually got after hours. So Donald J. Trump mentioned that he met with Mr. Lip-Bu Tan of Intel, along with Secretary of Commerce and Secretary of the Treasury. The meeting was a very interesting one. His success, talking about Lip-Bu Tan, and rise is an amazing story. Mr. Tan and my cabinet members are going to spend time together and bring suggestions to me during the next week. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So I don't want to say this is completely bullish for Intel, but we have gone from this aggressive time to resign, where Donald Trump kind of gives a form of compliment, kind of talking about his rise of Mr. Lip-Bu Tan. It seems like the tone is shifting. I wouldn't say this is completely bullish, but at least we're kind of escaping kind of that bearish sentiment of the current administration. Now, this is definitely going to be something that's going to be interesting. I'm going to guess one thing that we do see with the current administration is they do love U.S. investments increase. And with Intel recently slowing down their capital expenditure and some of the expansions in United States, I wonder how they might turn things around. In a prior episode, I kind of talked about if maybe during this meeting, Lip-Bu Tan can say, hey, look, we're trying to build a manufacturing facility here in the United States, but we're just not getting any orders. Maybe you, as being the president of the United States and being great friends with all these tech leaders who they respect you, right? That's kind of the way it makes it seem. Why don't you get some of them to come and place some small orders in our U.S. fabs? So I wonder how this is going to play out. I talked about my thoughts in the previous episode, but at least now we've kind of, I'm not an Intel shareholder, but Intel shareholders have kind of escaped that extremely bearish scenario right now. Now, Intel did report kind of a following statement, which was extremely short. Intel's statement following the meeting with President Trump. Earlier today, Mr. Tan had the honor of meeting with President Trump for a candid and constructive discussion on Intel's commitment to strengthening U.S. technology and manufacturing leadership. We appreciate the President's strong leadership to advance these critical priorities and look forward to working closely with him and his administration as we restore this great American company. So again, no real update. We don't know what they discussed. We don't know anything. We just know that Lip-Bu Tan talked about his past, and the current administration said, okay, that's good enough for now. We're going to make it seem like we don't hate you just yet. So in the upcoming weeks, I do believe Intel shareholders are going to want to see what's happening, because what's happening with this current administration could create volatility for Intel stock investors. Now, the next company I want to take a closer look at is Micron Technology. So Micron Technology recently had presentation today or a conference, and prior to the conference they did upgrade their guidance for the upcoming quarter. But before we go anywhere, guys, if you haven't done so, please make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button. I'm trying to hit 75,000 subs by the end of the year. I'm hoping maybe we can hit it by the end of the month. That would be crazy. So make sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe button. If you want semiconductor newsletter, check out whatthechip.happened.com. There were a lot of conferences today that we're going to cover in that newsletter. Free, check it out, and definitely appreciate the support. All right, so now let's take a closer look at Micron Technology. So Micron Technology, ticker MU, up about 4%. A quick 101 of what's happening with the stock is recently it has kind of seen some negative pressure as there have been some fears about the HBM market, about competitive landscape, about pricing in the HBM space and maybe in the DRAM space, right? So that's why we can see prior to this, the stock was actually down about 15%. Now it's pretty much flat in the past month. But that was kind of the biggest negative sentiment. So here we can see they had a KeyBank Capital Market Technology Leadership Forum, which was today on August 11th of 2025. So the first thing is Micron announced a significant guidance raise for its fiscal quarter 4, driven primarily by robust pricing strength across all end markets rather than change in volume. So right off the bat, this kind of pushes away the first bearish case that there is too much competition in the memory space and saying, look, we're not getting more volume. We're just actually getting better pricing right now. We can actually increase the guidance. So guidance actually increased a nice amount. Revenue at midpoint was originally around 10.7 billion. Now it's at 11.2 billion. So about a 500 million upside, which I think is pretty strong. They also expected gross margins to expand. Prior guidance was 42%. They increased it to 44.5. Earnings per share rose from $2.50 at midpoint to $2.85 with the new guidance. So overall, amazing results there. The pricing power was particularly strong in data centers, PCs, and mobile markets. So we can see that this DRAM technology is actually not just exciting right now in the AI server space, but it's also kind of picking back up in the DRAM market as well. Now, I'm not sure if many people follow the memory market in detail, but if you do, you guys know that the DDR4 is kind of at the end of life for Micron. It's still a small portion of this company's total revenue, low single digits, but DDR4 is also seeing some form of tailwinds as a lot of companies are leaving and the supply and demand is kind of shifting a little bit. The balance is shifting a little bit. But they mentioned this is minimal portion of their revenue. Their biggest kind of revenue growth and gross margins and earnings per share guidance beat or up guidance is due to DDR, the kind of more advanced technology. So that's really great news right off the bat. Now, the company also talks about kind of the future of AI. So Micron mentions that this AI space is a multi-decade transformation. And right now, we're currently in this ANI, which they call artificial narrow intelligence, where AI is good at certain things. In the future, they believe we're going to get to AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. And eventually, in the long term, within the decade, we would get something ASI, artificial superintelligence, described as all of the wisdom of humanity in a data center, which is wild. Now, they mentioned that this multiple decade AI transformation is going to provide a clear path of growth for memory solutions, especially as just for this year, massive hyperscaler CapEx with the top 5 companies projected to spend over $400 billion in 2025 alone. In 2026, I believe we're going to get closer to $500 billion. And critically, Micron expects AI to go beyond data centers, to go into edge devices, driving massive increase in smartphone, in computers over the next 24 months, with further expansion into things like smart cars, glasses, and other intelligent devices. So a lot of exciting stuff there. Now, they shared 3 other topics that we're going to look at. We're going to look at HBM development, HBM4E customization, which I think is super crucial, and US manufacturing. But if we look at HBM development, they talk about HBM3E yields. They mentioned that the volume of 12 high stacks now exceed 8 high stacks, indicating rapid yield improvements and manufacturing maturity. They also mentioned, I think this is crazy, 2026 supply is looking to be sold out. The company is confident in selling their entire 2026 HBM supply within the upcoming months, which includes HBM3E, mostly 12 high stack, and the next generation of HBM4. So they're going to be sold out for 2026. They're also continuing to see a strong execution with HBM, and they're already kind of sending that out for testing. More importantly, HBM demand constraints conventional DRAM supply due to a trade-off ratio between HBM and DDR5 wafers, which contributes to pricing strength across the broader DRAM market. So a market that used to be filled with a lot of inventory now has a trade-off ratio that is creating not massive inventories and hopefully is protecting this company from having a longer cycle than normal and not being commodity too early. Now, with HBM4E, and again, if you are a Micron shareholder, hopefully you are getting this information because it was a lot to unpack here. This is what you're going to get in this channel. So, Micron unveiled that HBM4E is going to have this massive shift in the AI space. This is going to eventually become kind of a customized solution, kind of like an ASIC market. This involves integrating customers' GPU logic directly into the HBM based die, creating products unique to each customer. Now, this is interesting for the following reasons. It's going to change the competitive landscape. The first thing is it's going to reduce competition. The high research and development cost and IP complexity will lead customers to partner with only one or two HBM suppliers instead of three or multiple, locking in relationships. So once HBM4E comes out, this customization, you're going to want to make sure you are part of that customer they're working with, because they're not going to want to work with everybody since you have those high research and development costs. This is also creating kind of like an ASIC-like model with higher returns and deeper customer integrations, moving away from commodity dynamics. Now, Micron does claim that their HBM products right now is the best in the market, which has 30% lower power consumption than competitors, a critical advantage for power-constrained AI data centers. Now, Micron is shooting at all cylinders. Like we saw, they mentioned they believe they're going to be supply sold out for 2026 in HBM. They mentioned that they increased guidance dramatically, mainly due to stronger pricing. They mentioned that the HBM4E is going to create more of a reduced competition space and higher margin business. And more importantly, which I think this is actually crucial, they are the only US-based memory company. Micron is uniquely positioned to benefit from customers' desire for domestic partnership and supply chain resilience, something that the current administration has been pushing, more US suppliers. And Micron is the only one that is a US-based memory company. So that alone can create some excitement. The company has committed over $200 billion over 20 plus years to use research and development manufacturing. 150 for manufacturing and 50 billion for research and development. The most important thing about this, though, is the R&D collaboration. Micron's US-based research and development teams work closely with all these other companies. I mean, NVIDIA is headquartered here in the United States. AMD is headquarters here. So you're having a team that has the same type of culture, that has the same type of zones, that has kind of a lot better ability to communicate and collaborate with these players. So because of that, they believe it's going to enable a deeper and more efficient collaboration that Micron technology can benefit from. So I want to say Micron definitely with this event presentation that they were just in, or conference, they came in showing a lot of bullish sentiment. I can definitely respect why the stock is up roughly 4%. Now, let me know what are your thoughts if you are enjoying this episode. Let me know if you are an Intel and Micron shareholder. I believe right now Micron is definitely very bullish. I don't own the stock. I've talked about it in the past. I believe the memory market, while it's no longer as competitive as it normally is, I still rather own the AI chip companies themselves. But I can see why there is excitement for Micron, especially with what we heard today. So take care, have a good day, and see you all next time.